I set my suitcase on my sister's porch and held up a Wi-Fi router like a peace offering. My name is Peyton Bell. I'm 31, recently divorced as of March, and I work admin at a small HVAC office on the east side of town. When Lacey opened the door that first night, she was already in running shorts and a bun, eyes bright with a plan. She's 34, my older sister by 3 years, the kind of person who moves with a list in her head. Behind her, Jackson hovered with a beer and a smirk. He's 35, good at standing in a doorway like it's a job. We shook on it in the kitchen next to a stack of mail and a bowl of bruised apples. You cover groceries and internet, Lacey said, tapping the counter, and morning drop-offs. We'll handle the mortgage. It's just a spare room, Jackson added. We're not trying to make money off you. Groceries, internet, drop-offs, I repeated. You two handle the house. We sealed it with the kind of handshake that passes for family law. It was mid-March. The snow had finally melted into grey lines along the curb, and I moved into their extra room with a suitcase, a box of dishes, and the router from my old apartment. The spare room had a futon and a narrow closet that stuck on humid days. I put my dresser against the wall and lined up my shoes under the window. The house is a small 3-bedroom on the east side of town, 15 minutes from their kids' school and 20 minutes from my office off Route 19. Max is 8, starting to get opinions about everything. Vienna is 3, all curls and snack demands. Their bedtime routines lived on dry erase boards taped to the fridge. The laundry machines rattled. The hot water took a full minute to get brave. I set up the internet in my name because we needed it that night and I could get the account approved quickly. The electric bill ended up in my name too. Lacey said they were switching providers and asked if I could just handle it for now. I opened a blue folder and slid the first receipts inside. Router serial number, account numbers, logins, a note about the deposit. The folder was cheap plastic and the colour of an ocean I haven't seen yet. I keep it because paper doesn't forget when people do. Mornings found their rhythm. My alarm went off at 6:10. Oatmeal on the stove, bananas in slices, a search for Max's missing shoe that was always somehow under the couch, Vienna's daycare bag packed with 2 changes of clothes because she's 3. Lacey's early shift starts at 6, so she would back out of the driveway in scrubs or leggings before any of us had a chance to complain. Jackson leaves around 8, after he warms up with a game on his phone. I'd load the kids into my car at 7:35, drop Max at school by 7:55 because his bell rings at 8:05, and then Vienna at daycare by 8:20. I clocked in at my desk at 8:45 on the good days, 9 horn on the ones where socks went missing and cereal exploded. I paid for groceries on Sundays: milk, eggs, ground turkey, apples, jelly, oatmeal, the good kind of cheese when it was on sale. I took pictures of every receipt and tucked them into the blue folder, then wrote the totals on a ledger page. Column for groceries, column for utilities, notes about cash I handed over for last-minute field trips. If it sounded fussy, well, it kept my brain straight. There was no rent. That was the point. In exchange for the mortgage I couldn't afford, I covered the things they could never seem to remember until the fridge was empty or the Wi-Fi glitching during Max's homework. It felt fair. It also felt like holding my breath. 8 weeks in, the house sounded like a clock. Doors shut a certain way, the table creaked when 2 people leaned on it at the same time. I knew which cabinet stuck, which burner ran hot. I also knew when Lacey was about to bring something up. Her jaw would set and her hands would straighten whatever was in front of her. Napkins, a placemat, the kids' drawings on the fridge. On a Tuesday night, we had pot roast. The kind that makes the whole house smell like patience. Vienna was batting green beans off her plate one by one. Max was telling me how his teacher says you have to double-check your math because the computer isn't always right. Jackson scrolled with his thumb under the table and smirked at something only he could see. Lacey wiped her hands on a dish towel and sat down across from me. She folded her arms, every move precise. "Okay," she said, voice bright like she was selling me something. "New plan." I put my fork down. "What plan?" "Rent," she said. "We start tonight. $300. Jackson looked up finally. "Or," he added, the words stretching, "you can be out by Sunday." The pot roast was perfect. The room went quiet the way rooms do when you realize everyone else knew this conversation was coming, but you. I felt the shape of the blue folder in my bag like a coin. "Rent starts tonight, $300. Or be out by Sunday," Lacey repeated, as if clearer would make it kinder. I didn't argue. I reached into my tote, set the blue folder on the table beside the pot roast, and flipped it open. "Peyton," Lacey said, already warning me with my name. "Here's what I've paid," I said. I slid the top page toward her. 3 months of receipts. See the dates. Groceries, $238 last Sunday. Electric, or $146 last month. Gas, $92. There are screenshots of the Zelle transfers for the field trip and Vienna's shoes. I tapped the typed ledger underneath. Columns neat, totals bolded. I keep it clean so nobody has to guess. Jackson leaned back and smirked, like I'd brought a scrapbook. "That doesn't change rent." "It clarifies what we agreed," I said. "Groceries, internet, and drop-offs from me. Mortgage from you two." Lacey's jaw clicked. She ran her finger down the numbers. "I'm not saying you haven't helped. I'm not helping," I said calm. "I'm covering the things we agreed I would cover. And I'm ending my part the right way." Under the ledger, I slid out the next sheet, a printout from the city's housing page. "Notice for month to month, 30 days. I'm giving it tonight." Then the letter I'd typed, signed, dated. "This is my move out notice, 30 days from today. I'll keep doing morning drop-offs through my notice, same as always." Lacey went a shade lighter. "You're moving out. You gave me 4 days," I said. "I'm giving you 30. Jackson made a little scoff noise. "You can't just bail on the bills and leave the lights on us." "I'm not bailing," I said. I pulled the last printouts free, confirmation emails. "The internet and electric are in my name because you asked me to set them up fast. I've requested that both accounts end on Friday unless you transfer them. Here are the steps and the phone numbers. There's probably a deposit. When you call, they'll move service without a gap." Max's fork paused halfway to his mouth. He looked between us like we were a TV show. Vienna flicked another green bean. Lacey stared at the confirmation pages like they were in a different language. "Friday? That's in 3 days." "Right," I said. "Plenty of time to call. It takes 10 minutes. If you do it tonight, you won't even notice the switch." Jackson picked up one of the printouts and snorted. "You're bluffing. You can't just do this." "I already did," I said. The room settled into the hum of the refrigerator and Vienna humming to herself. I reached for the gravy and poured it over my potatoes like we were just having dinner. "You're really going to turn off the Wi-Fi when Max has homework?" Lacey said, voice getting tight. "And Vienna's daycare. How am I supposed to do mornings if you just—" "I said I'll keep dropping them off through my notice," I said. "I'll be up at 6:10, oatmeal on by 6:20, out the door at 7:35. Nothing changes on that until my last day." Jackson shook his head like I'd told a joke wrong. "You can't give notice like you're a tenant. This is our house." "I'm giving courtesy notice because I live here and I'm not paying rent," I said, keeping my voice level. "I'm ending accounts that are in my name because I'm not going to keep paying for a house I don't own. Both things are normal." Lacey flipped back to the ledger. "What even is this number?" She pointed to a total. "Totals through today," I said. "Groceries, internet, electric, gas, notes on the field trip, and the week I had to get diapers on the way home because we were out. The blue folder holds everything so we don't have to argue about memory." She pressed her lips together. "You could have just said you wanted to move out. You said, rent tonight or be out by Sunday, I said. I heard you. Max cleared his throat. Can I still use the Wi-Fi for my math now? Tonight it's fine, I said to him. I don't turn anything off until Friday. Lacey pushed her chair back. The legs scraped. So that's it. You just, drop a packet and call it a day? I'm ending my part the right way, I repeated. I'll keep doing the kids' mornings. If you want help beyond that, ask. But no more ambushes. Jackson snapped the folder shut, like that would erase it. You're not serious. You can't just do this. I stood, stacked my plate and fork, and carried them to the sink. The hot water took a minute to get brave, same as always. I rinsed my plate clean, set it to dry, and wiped the counter where the gravy had splashed. I already did, I said again, mostly to the dish towel. Then I left the blue folder on the table where they could see the dates and the math, and I went down the hall to my room to start a list of boxes. The house went tight overnight. Even the chairs sounded careful when we pulled them back from the table. I made oatmeal, sliced bananas, found Max's shoe under the couch on the first try, because silence makes you efficient. Lacey's car was gone before my alarm, early shift. Jackson drifted through at 8, phone in hand. At 7:35 I buckled them in like always. Max climbed into the back seat with his backpack and a sigh too big for an 8-year-old. Vienna asked for a snack, even though breakfast had just happened. The roads were damp from a sprinkle that didn't commit. School drop-off at 7:55, daycare by 8:20, my office by 8:45. The clock didn't ask questions. My phone buzzed at a red light between stops. Family group chat ping-pong, then Lacey directly, "You're bailing on us after everything we've done." A minute later, Mum, "Can you two please not do this?" I took a photo at my desk, just the ledger page with totals, dates, the headings clear, and sent it to Nadine privately. "This is what I've covered. I gave a 30-day notice last night. 3 dots, then Mom. I hate this," which wasn't a side, which was exactly her. At lunch, Miles leaned on my cubicle wall with a granola bar. "You look like you're doing math you don't like." "I need boxes," I said. "And probably a truck, eventually." "I've got a truck," he said, "and I owe you for covering that Friday when my kid was sick. You just say when." "I'm not moving for a few weeks," I said. "I gave notice, but I'm looking." "Something small like can't turn around without bumping into the sink," he said. He grinned. "I've moved 3 times in 4 years. I've got ratchet straps and opinions." "Opinions first," I said, "then straps." After work, I drove to a building 6 blocks from the bus line and an overgrown park that was all swings and clover. The entry buzzer hung at an angle. Denise, the building manager, met me in a floral blouse and sneakers. She carried a ring of keys like a jailer. "Studio's on the 2nd floor," she said, leading me up narrow stairs that leaned just a little. "It's cute, you'll see. A lot of character." She said character like a price cut. The door stuck. She hip-checked it and we were in. Peeling paint in one corner near the window. A square of sunlight on the floor where it managed to get through the dirty glass. A kitchenette with a 2-burner stove and an oven the size of a carry-on. "Quaint," Denise said, patting the oven like it could hear. "Heat and hot water included. You pay electric. Coin-op laundry in the basement. No elevator, but you're young." She said it like a compliment and a challenge. "What's the application process?" I asked. "App, fee, last 2 pay stubs, copy of your license," she ticked off. "We run background, call your employer, and I like a personal reference if you've got one. Deposit is 1 month's rent." "If you get me everything by Friday, we could have you approved next week, maybe the week after." That sounded like a timeline that didn't require miracles. "I'll bring the paperwork tomorrow," I said. Back in the car, I called Jasmine. "There's a place. Small. Denise called the oven quaint." "That's code for learn to love the microwave," she said. I'm in. I'll bring pizza and honesty on moving day, and boxes. Go to the liquor store and ask for their flats. They're gold for books. Why do you know that? I've been poor twice, she said. Also, I like organisation. Proud of you, by the way. I don't feel proud, I said. I feel like I just kicked a hornet's nest and now I'm pretending I like bees. Hold steady, she said. Boundaries, Buzz. You'll be fine. At home, the blue folder had migrated to the microwave. Lacey had placed it neatly like it might behave if it felt included. Jackson was on the couch, TV low, thumb busy. He didn't look up when I came in. I started with my closet. I folded clothes into piles, taped up one box, labelled it Room, Clothes with a black marker. I wrapped my mugs in T-shirts. I put a stack of plates between sweaters. The motion helped. The tape gun made a sound like a zipper ending. In the kitchen I reached for the hook by the door where the house keys live. The spare that used to hang there, the one we kept for dog sitters and emergencies, was gone. The hook was empty and the wood was lighter where the key had covered it. I stood there, hand suspended, and then I let it drop. People talk about trust like a feeling. It's also a metal thing on a ring that can go missing. At 9:15, Max slipped into the hallway, eyes tired. Aunt Peyton, do we have any more paper for the printer? My volcano report is due Friday. In the top drawer of the desk, I said. Take 3 sheets and save the rest. He nodded and padded away, socks whispering against the floor. I was heading to the bathroom when Lacey stepped out of her room and blocked the hall. She didn't touch me, she just stood there, arms braced on either side, like the doorframe was a finish line she was guarding. You wouldn't put your own family on the street, she said. Her voice was low and smooth, the way it gets when she thinks reasoning will win. I looked at her hands on the wood, her knuckles pale. I gave 30 days, I said. You gave me 4. On Thursday morning I made coffee, opened my laptop at the kitchen table, and sent an email to Lacey and Jackson with the subject line. Utility transfer before Friday. I put the account numbers, customer service numbers, and the exact links to start a transfer. I even wrote out the part where you have to select Move Service instead of New Service, so they wouldn't get jammed in a phone tree. I printed a copy and taped it to the side of the fridge with blue painter's tape, because that's what we had. No reply. At lunch, I forwarded the same email from my desk, added, It takes 10 minutes. If you do it by tonight, nothing will lapse. The provider portal still showed my name as primary, and the disconnect date as Friday. No transfer pending. Thursday night, they were polite in that brittle way that makes forks sound louder. Lacey washed dishes with the faucet running full blast. Jackson kept the TV on sports with the volume just low enough to be irritating. I packed more boxes. I reminded myself that I had put the steps in their hands twice. At 11:47 p.m, I logged in one last time to check. The ISP chat agent told me the disconnect order was set for 12:01 a.m. Friday. If the receiving party calls, we can do a quick transfer, she typed. Otherwise, the account will close. I screenshot the chat and emailed it with a line. Last reminder. At 12:02 a.m., the modem's blinking went flat. The little world light died. In the living room, the TV flickered to a black box complaining about no network. 10 minutes later, Max stumbled down the hall, hair wild, face blotchy. My report, he said. It says offline. I finished 3 paragraphs and they're gone. His voice pitched up at the end, and he did that hiccup breath kids do when they're trying not to cry. It's late, buddy, I said, crouching to his level. Did you have it open in Google Docs? He nodded hard. Dad said I could finish it tonight because I forgot the rubric at school and he didn't want me to get in trouble. From the couch, Jackson stood, remote in his hand like it might solve something. What did you do? He snapped at me. Turn it off to make a point. I told you all day it would shut off at midnight, I said. I kept my voice even. I left the links. If you start the transfer, they can move it tonight. We're not paying twice, he said. I'm not giving them another deposit when you already have one. That's what I've been doing, I said. Lacey came in from the hallway in an oversized t-shirt, eyes tired. She put a hand on Max's head. It's okay, she said to him. We'll fix it. Go get your Chromebook. We'll try to see if it's saved. I can turn on my phone hotspot for him, I said. Just for tonight. Then tomorrow you call and put the account in your name like we should have done earlier. Jackson made a sound like a scoff, and a laugh had a messy baby. Don't act like you're doing us a favour. I'm helping Max finish his report, I said. That's it. I grabbed my phone, turned on the hotspot and connected Max's Chromebook. He sat at the table, shoulders hunched, and retyped what he could remember. Lacey hovered, coaching him. Write in sentences, baby. Don't forget the part about lava. Jackson paced and glared at the dead modem like it had insulted him personally. By 12:40, Max had what he needed. I turned off my hotspot. Lacey guided him back to bed, whispering in the soft voice she saves for the 2 a.m. bad dreams. When she came back out, she avoided looking at the router. At dawn, my phone buzzed. Lacey text, Can you do daycare drop? I typed back, Yes, I'll do mornings through my notice like we agreed. I was up at 6:10 anyway, oatmeal at 6:20, Max's shoe under the couch at 6:27. Vienna's daycare bag repacked because somehow socks evaporate in this house. Lacey left at 6 on the dot, scrubs swishing, keys jangling. Jackson stared at his phone, then at the dead modem, then went to the breaker box like flipping a switch would conjure Wi-Fi. It didn't. At 7:35, I loaded the kids into my car. Max buckled in and looked at me with that face that says, Please pretend this is normal. Your report will be fine, I told him. We'll print it at school. Traffic was light, drop-off at 7:55, Vienna at daycare by 8:20. I slid into my desk at 8:46, 1 minute later than my usual good days, and answered emails. Around noon, another text from Lacey. Can you do school pickup? Jackson's tire blew. I'm stuck charting late. I checked my calendar. We were slow. I walked down the hall and asked my boss if I could leave at 2:30 and make up the hour tomorrow. He said yes before I finished the sentence. At 2:25, I parked in the school lot. The pickup line snaked like it always does, a parade of minivans and half-empty coffee cups. I rolled down my window to breathe something that wasn't recycled. Lacey's car pulled in 3 rows back. She got out and walked up the line, fast and clipped, hair pulled back so tight it made her forehead shiny. She leaned into my open window close enough that I could smell her hand soap. You really think you're going to walk out and leave us with nothing? She said, voice low enough that only I could hear. I'm not leaving you with nothing, I said. I'm leaving you with your part. Lacey blinked, like the words stung. Then she did the thing where her face cycled through a whole season in a minute. Hurt, anger, calculation. You're punishing us, she said. You know we don't have 300 just sitting there. I'm not punishing anyone, I said. I'm following what we agreed. Groceries, internet, drop-offs from me. I'm still doing mornings through my notice. If you want help beyond that, ask ahead and I'll tell you what I can do. Her eyes went glassy. So that's a no. After everything I do for you, you can't even float us this week. No to floating, I said. Yes to planning. Send me times. I'll confirm what I can do. A teacher waved us forward. I pulled up, Max climbed in with a wave to the aide, and we slid back into the line of cars. Vienna was next, daycare by 3:10. By 3:40, both kids were home, shoes in the entryway like always. At a red light on the way back, my email pinged. Denise, got your application, thanks for the quick turnaround. If references check out, I can have an answer by next week. I exhaled in a way that finally reached my shoulders. I'd scanned my pay stubs and license at lunch, filled out the application, and listed my boss and Jasmine as references. I forwarded the confirmation to my personal email, and then to the Blue Folder's digital twin, a cloud folder with the same name. Back at the house, the air felt brittle. Jackson was fussing with the modem like Abe might coax Wi-Fi back to life. Lacey moved through the kitchen fast enough to make drawers thud. I started dinner because the kids were hungry. Grilled cheese and tomato soup, minimal conversation required. Max did math at the table. Vienna coloured, tongue out in concentration, then asked me to draw a cat. I drew a potato with ears and she told me it looked like a seal. We called it a cat seal and let it stick. After dishes, my phone lit up. Lacey, we can pay you back next Friday. Just float us this week so the kids aren't caught in the middle. A second message. Mum says you're being dramatic, I typed. I'm not lending money. I'm still doing mornings through my notice. If there are times you need help, send them and I'll confirm if I can. Then I put the phone face down because watching dots appear and disappear makes me feel like I'm standing on an escalator that keeps stalling. At 8:14 p.m, Jackson's name flashed across my screen. I didn't pick up. The voicemail landed a minute later, his voice low and mean in that way that pretends to be calm. You don't make the rules here. If you're going to play games with the bills, we'll evict you early. You can pack tonight. I played it twice, then saved it and labelled it 05, voicemail, Jackson, evicting early. I forwarded it to my email and dragged the file into a folder named documentation because naming things helps when people don't. I went to get the oatmeal for morning and found a new plastic click clamped across the pantry door. A child lock. I recognised it. We'd used the same kind when Vienna first learned twist caps. Under it, through the half-inch gap, I could see the staples I'd bought: rice, pasta, peanut butter, the good cereal I snagged on sale. Pettiness has a sound. It's the tiny snap of plastic meeting plastic. I stood there a second with my hand on the useless knob, then turned, opened the drawer with the tape and scissors, and wrote a note on lined paper. Big letters, no emotion. Use by Friday 5:26. After that, I'm not your pantry. I taped it on the fridge at eye level. Next to it, the printed utility transfer instructions were still blue-taped from yesterday, the edges curling. Lacey read the note as she passed. Real mature, she said, not stopping. It's a date, I said, same as the utilities. Same as my notice. Mom's right, she muttered. You're making this a thing. It already is a thing, I said. At 9, a Cash App request popped up on my screen. Lacey C. requesting $300 for rent. I took a screenshot of my Ledger Totals page, the one with columns and dates, and sent it back with a brief line. Totals through this week. I'm not paying rent. I've paid the agreed items and I'm ending them properly. She replied with a thumbs down. Then a paragraph about how selfish I was, how I was abandoning Max and Vienna, how I was choosing paper over people. I didn't answer. Instead, I set an alarm for 6:10, laid out oatmeal and bowls, and packed 2 sets of clothes into Vienna's daycare bag because we have all learned. My phone buzzed again. Mum, can you just apologise, even if you're right? I stared at it until the screen went dark. I sent her the same Ledger photo as before, this time with the voicemail file attached. I'm not fighting, I wrote. I'm using dates and amounts. I'm still doing mornings. Before bed, I opened the electric account on my laptop, half expecting to see a transfer pending. Nothing. I forwarded the links again, this time with the subject line. Third reminder, so please transfer to avoid disconnection. Then I shut the laptop and let the house be quiet, without asking it to be kind. Denise called on Tuesday at 10:12 a.m. I was at my desk, headset half on. You're approved, she said cheerful. If you can bring first month and deposit by Friday, we'll hand over keys the same day. Lease starts June 1st. I'll be there after work, I said. I texted Miles, move this Saturday. He replied with 3 bicep emojis and I'll bring the dolly. Jasmine sent, pizza and honesty loaded. Friday, I signed with Denise at a folding table in the lobby because her office chair broke last winter and never came back. She slid a key across the table. Second floor sticks in July. Hip check it. I nodded, took the key and drove straight to the studio with a trash bag of cleaning supplies. I scrubbed window tracks until grey water turned clear, wiped cabinets, opened the tiny oven and laughed out loud because quaint had been generous. I set my blue folder on the counter and breathed. 1 door, 1 key. Saturday at 9, Miles backed his truck into Lacey's driveway like he did it for a living. Where do you want me? He said, swinging a moving blanket over his shoulder. Room first, I said. Boxes, then the dresser, then the futon. Jasmine arrived with a stack of pizza boxes and a roll of tape hanging from her wrist. $1 slices before we earn them, she said, handing me one, then held out a Sharpie. Label, like you mean it. We did 3 runs. The first was easy, boxes neatly taped and labelled. Room, clothes, kitchen, mugs, papers, blue folder stays. With me. The second was awkward, the dresser and futon. A dance down the narrow hall, corners wrapped in blankets so we didn't tattoo the walls. The third was stragglers, lamps, the laundry basket full of shoes, the plant I've kept alive since the divorce because it refuses to die, and so do I. The studio stairs leaned like they needed a nap, but Miles and Jasmine moved with the kind of rhythm that comes from not needing to talk. We propped the door open. A neighbour with a tiny dog watched us with interest and zero offer to help. By noon the futon was unfolded against the wall, the dresser anchored, the mugs in a row. Jasmine wiped her hands on her jeans and pointed at the window. You'll want a fan, she said, and maybe a curtain for when the sun decides you're in its way. I'll get both, I said. I peeled the tape off a box and pulled out a small framed photo of Max and Vienna at the pumpkin patch, cheeks orange with dust. I set it on the dresser. We ate the last 2 slices cold, sitting on the floor. It tasted like relief and grease. Miles checked his phone and stood. I've got to get my kid by 2, he said. You good? I'm good, I said. Thank you. We hauled the last empty plastic bins back to the truck. On the way out of the old house, I grabbed the house key from my ring. I stopped by Lacey's room. She was folding laundry that didn't look like it wanted her help. I held out the key and a clean copy of my end date, June 22nd, typed, signed. I'm moved, I said. Here's my key. I'm still doing morning drop-offs through the 22nd. She took the key like it was hot. So that's it. You're just gone. I'll be here mornings, I said. And I can offer Sundays 2 to 4 for the kids. That's what I can do. She blinked. Then she lifted Vienna off the bed and stepped forward, trying to place her in my arms. Just while you unpack. She'll nap anywhere. I didn't take her. Sundays 2 to 4, I repeated. Text me if you want this Sunday. That's cold, she said. It's a schedule, I said. Jackson came down the hall, looked at the key in Lacey's hand, and smirked like the punchline was late. Have fun paying 2 rents, he said. I'm paying my rent and nothing else, I said. The internet company will need your name for service. I didn't wait for the eye roll. Back at the studio, I put the cleaning supplies under the sink, made the futon, and hung 2 shirts in the closet to make the space look less like a stage set. I put my toothbrush in a cup and stood still long enough to hear nothing. Nobody needed me to find a shoe. Nobody needed me to hurry. I locked the door and the click sounded like sanity. Monday at 6:03 a.m, my phone rang. Lacey. I answered on the second ring. Our Wi-Fi cut again last night, she said without hello. Max's homework didn't sync, and he was crying, and daycare is $85 a day, and I can't swing this, and can you just come back for a month while we figure it out? No, I said, I'm not moving back. I kept my voice even. I will do morning drop-offs through the 22nd, like I said, and I can do Sundays 2 to 4. That's what I'm offering. Peyton, she put my name on a sigh. Please. I'm not moving back, I repeated. Do you want me to grab oatmeal on my way? There was a long pause. I could picture her in the dark kitchen, arms folded, eyes bright the way they get when she's deciding whether to fight or blink. Fine, she said finally. We'll remember this. Mum's kitchen smelled like buttercream and coffee. She'd frosted her own cake, which is exactly the kind of thing she does, pretend it's not her birthday by keeping her hands busy. I set a stack of paper plates by the candles and tried not to notice the 2 extra chairs we dragged in for Lacey and Jackson sitting empty. They came in 20 minutes late, keys jangling, both kids in tow. Lacey's hair was damp and slicked back like she'd showered fast. Vienna clung to her hip, eyes big, and Max beelined for the counter where the cake was, then stopped when he saw me. You could have told me, Lacey said by way of hello. Instead of making this whole show. Hi, Mum said too brightly. Coats on the hooks, shoes by the mat. Let's not... I told you, Lacey went on past her. She just left. She took the router and left. I left after my notice, I said, and I left instructions for the transfer. Jackson hovered behind her, that half smirk like he'd been practicing. It's fine, he said to Mom, patting her shoulder like he was the reasonable one. We're figuring it out. Mom winced. Can we cut the cake in peace? I set the blue folder beside the candles. Give me 5 minutes first, I said. Then we'll sing. Mum looked at me, then at Lacey. She sighed the way she did when we were kids, and we made her count to 3. 5 minutes, she said. Then no more tonight. I opened the folder and pulled out the top page. This is my ledger, I said, not raising my voice. We agreed in March, groceries, internet and morning drop-offs from me. You 2 handle the mortgage. These are the totals for the last 3 months. I slid the page so Lacey and Jackson could see. Groceries, $238 last Sunday. Electric, $146. Gas, $92, plus the Zelle for Max's field trip and Vienna's shoes. Jackson's mouth flattened. Lacey's jaw clicked. I laid the next paper down, city header at the top. I gave a 30-day notice on Tuesday. I tapped the date. Move out set for June 22nd. I'm still doing morning drop-offs until then. I've been up at 6:10 every day this week, oatmeal on, kids out by 7:35. Mom's eyes flicked to the page, then to me. She was listening now. I added the printed emails with the blue tape marks still at the corners where they'd hung on the fridge. I sent instructions to transfer the internet and electric twice. I wrote out the steps, the numbers to call, and that you have to select Move Service, so there's no gap. When nothing happened, I ended the accounts in my name with a Friday cut-off. I offered to hotspot Max that night so he could finish his report. He did. Lacey looked like she was chewing a battery. You didn't have to go nuclear. I didn't, I said. I gave dates and timelines and options. I'm offering help on a schedule. Sundays 2 to 4. I'll keep doing mornings through the 22nd. That's what I can do. I didn't pull out Jackson's voicemail. I didn't need to. I just rested my hand on the folder. No more ambush ultimatums, I said. If you want help, ask ahead and respect the answer. Silence, the kind that isn't empty, just full of everyone thinking. Jackson's smirk slid off like it had been taped on wrong. How do we switch the internet? He said finally, voice lower. What do we actually do? Call the number on the printout, I said, keeping it practical. Say you're moving service to your address. They'll ask for your info and run a soft check. Sometimes there's a deposit. If there is, pay it, and they'll flip it on within the hour. If you'd rather do it online, the link is in the email I sent you both. It's 10 minutes. He nodded once, eyes on the paper. And electric. Same thing, the account's ending in my name. You call, put it in yours. They'll backdate to today and send the bill to you. Lacey's face folded. Not a full-on cry, just the break that happens when there's no argument left that doesn't make you look petty. She looked at Mom, like maybe she'd rescue her. Mom rubbed her temple and looked tired of all of us. I don't like any of this, she said, but I like paper. Paper is helpful. Vienna tugged Lacey's sleeve. Can I have cake now? She whispered. Yes, Mom said, relief snapping in. Cake! We're doing cake! We lit the candles. Mom closed her eyes and made a wish I didn't ask about. We sang. Vienna clapped off beat. Wax dripped on the frosting and Max tried to catch it with a finger like it was part of the design. While Mom cut slices, Max sidled up to me. Can we come see your new place on Sunday? He asked, voice pitched low like it was a secret. 2 to 4, I said, like we said. I'll make grilled cheese. Can I bring my volcano report? He said. I want to show you the new part I added. Absolutely, I said. Across the island, Lacey watched us, jaw working, then nodded just once. Sunday, she said, like she was testing the word. 2 to 4. Text me first, I said, so I can plan. Fine, she said. The edge in her voice dulled a fraction. Jackson took a bite of cake, swallowed, and pulled out his phone. What's the number again? He asked. I slid the printout back to him and pointed. Right there, I said. Pick move service. Don't let them sell you a bundle unless you want cable. He huffed a laugh despite himself. Mom exhaled like she'd been vacuum-packed. Vienna smeared frosting on her nose and shrieked when Max dabbed his to match. It felt almost normal in the way new arrangements try on the word. I closed the blue folder and set it by my purse. Boundaries had a shape and a colour now. I didn't gloat, I didn't apologise, I just took my slice of cake and let the room be what it was with the papers in the middle of it. Sundays found their shape fast. At 1:58 my buzzer would rattle, and by 2:01 there'd be small shoes in my doorway. I learned to have grilled cheese ready, 2 slices each, cut diagonally because triangles taste better, crayons in a shoebox, and my phone charged so Max could borrow my hotspot for whatever the school threw into Google Classroom over the weekend. Vienna would conk out on my futon halfway through a picture book, cheek on my thigh, the room going quiet in that deep, forgiving way naps make. The first Sunday, Lacey did drop off like a business transaction, hair in a braid, keys tight in her fist. 2 to 4, she said, and looked at her watch like the minutes might misbehave. I'll be back at 4. Okay, I said. Max slipped past her and put his volcano report on my counter like it was a centerpiece. Vienna pointed at the window. Bird, she said, proud of the one-word world she lives in. Lacey lingered a second in the hall, then left without the speech I could see forming. By the second Sunday, she texted at 1:30, running 5 late. Traffic, I replied. 2:05 is fine. At 2:07, she was there, sheepish, Vienna's hair lopsided from a car seat battle. Sorry, she said, Jackson grabbed the wrong bag. She didn't add a barb. Progress can be as boring as being only 7 minutes late. At my studio, Max spread out his homework on the rug. We used my hotspots sparingly because my data plan is not a miracle. He showed me the new paragraph about magma versus lava. It's lava when it's outside the volcano, he said, pleased. Magma is inside. Like people, I said. He didn't laugh, but he nodded like it made sense anyway. During the week, mornings carried on until they didn't. I set my alarm, drove across town in the cool part of June, and let myself into a house that had learned my rhythms and now was trying on its own. Oatmeal, bananas, shoe under the couch. I made sure backpacks had what they needed and that Vienna had 2 backups of socks, because socks vanish in that house like witnesses. On the 22nd, I didn't linger after drop-off. I hugged them both a fraction longer at their doors. Lacey texted at 6:01 that morning. "Thanks. Just that," I wrote back. "You're welcome. Sunday's still 2-4. The utilities sorted themselves the way paper and deadlines force things to. The Wi-Fi came back on the same day Jackson called the number. He texted me 2 words I didn't expect. "You were right." I sent back, "Good." I didn't add anything ornamental. Electric took longer. There was a week with fans and windows and Jackson muttering at the breaker like it owed him an apology. Then, on a Tuesday at 11:13, my phone buzzed. Zelle payment received from Jackson C. $92 note. Electric, no emoji, no message. I didn't write thank you, I just moved the screenshot into the Blue Folder's digital twin and went back to logging ductwork orders at my desk. Mom called one night while I was stirring pasta on my 2-burner stove. "I don't like how this all happened," she said, voice softer than her words. "But I like that everybody's calmer." "Paper helps," I said. "Schedules help." "I hung a whiteboard by my phone," she said, like she was telling me a secret. "I put Sunday 2-4 on it." "Good," I said. There was the sound of her sigh through the line, familiar as her living room lamp. Jackson stopped smirking at me, at least to my face. He was suspiciously practical in the school lot one afternoon when I happened to pull in at the same time. "We split pickups now," he said, sticking his hands in his pockets like the concept might bite. "I do Tuesdays and Thursdays. Lacey's got Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays rotate." He said it like a man who had discovered calendars and wanted a medal. "That's good," I said. "Kids like knowing who's coming." He nodded, then cleared his throat. "Do you need anything?" The question landed awkwardly between us. "I've got what I need," I said. "Thanks." On a quiet Thursday, Jasmine came by after work. She stood in the doorway with a fan in one hand and a curtain rod in the other. "For when the sun decides it's your enemy," she said. "You're psychic," I said. We installed the rod, hung a cheap panel and opened the window to test the breeze. The little oven whirred like it had opinions. We laughed until the room felt bigger. "Proud of you," she said, handing me a nail and a little brass hook. "For the key." I hammered the hook by the door, careful not to wake Vienna's nap from last Sunday echoing in my head. I slid my single key onto it and let it hang. It looked like an answer. By the time the heat settled into June proper, Sundays were predictable. Max knew where the crayons lived. Vienna knew where the extra blanket was. Lacey got better at asking ahead instead of assuming. Sometimes there was a chilly silence, sometimes she stayed in her car and scrolled, sometimes she came up and sat on my floor, watching her kids be small without making it about anything. Once she said, "Daycare is actually $85 a day." I didn't clock that. I said, "It adds up." We let the math sit between us like the blue folder on Mom's counter. I didn't chase apologies. None arrived, not in the way movies promise, but a normal formed. The utilities stayed on because their names were on the bills. The pantry stayed unlocked or locked on a given day, and it didn't matter because it wasn't my problem anymore. The kids learned that Sundays meant grilled cheese and a nap, and that if they wanted more time, they had to ask and wait for yes. When Lacey texted, "We switched the Wi-Fi, you were right," I replied, "Good." Then I hung my lone key back on its nail and listened to the tiny, satisfying click as it settled. My life on purpose